Next, we will have our internal audit of child nutrition department. If we could keep that under an hour.
This isn't me. This is the board's.
Thank you, Board President Burdine, members of the board, Dr. Dupree. It's my pleasure to be here tonight.
I'd like for Mr. Rice to open this up, if you could, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Burdine. Mr. Gibson is joining us with Gibson Consulting to present the results of the child nutrition audit, and at the end of which I'm sure he'll be happy to answer any questions. Take it away, Mr. Gibson.
Thank you. My name is Greg Gibson. I'm president of Gibson Consulting Group. We serve as the district's internal auditor, and this is our 7th year. And we appreciate being part of your board's initiative for continuous improvement. And tonight I'm going to present the results of the child nutrition audit. Before I start, I would like to thank the members of the child nutrition department for participating and cooperating with this audit. There was a leadership transition, and Strodbeck started the audit, and then Matt filled in later in the audit, and it was absolutely seamless. The audit was very smooth, and we worked really well, and they were very responsive to our needs and gathering the information we needed to conduct the audit. So thank you. Our audit team included Gibson representatives, names that are probably familiar to you, that were involved in project management, data analysis, our lead auditor. But we contracted, as we do on some of our audits, with a firm that has particular expertise in the topical area. And in this case, it was Tennell Consulting. And Robin Tennell is phenomenal. She is one of the top, I would say, 2 or 3 nutrition services consultants in the United States. And she has been working with our firm for several years now, and we are fortunate to have her participate on this audit. The objectives of this audit are similar to our other audits: effectiveness, efficiency, compliance. On page 2 of the report, there are 10 questions that are very specific to the nutrition services function, questions that we were addressing as part of the audit. I won't go through each of those. The scope of the audit and the organization of the report is broken down into 3 major areas: organization and management, financial management, and operations and staffing. Our audit approach, like many of our audits, is very data intensive. As your child nutrition department staff can attest to in collecting all this information for us. And we reviewed that information before we came on site, conducted a site visit, and conducted central office interviews, as well as visited 18 schools. I was fortunate enough to be able to visit one of those schools myself. Our team observed over 3,000 students eating lunch and 1,000 students eating breakfast at these 18 schools. We also conducted central office and school focus groups to collect and corroborate additional information. We also conducted audit testing in the areas of food production, records, edit checks or data verification, and employee site assignments. And these results are reflected also in the report. And we developed findings and recommendations and developed this final report. And throughout the report, you'll see references to CND and SNP. And CND is the Child Nutrition Department, and we specifically reference the department in many instances. And in other instances, we talk about the SNP, which is the Student Nutrition Program. And so I just wanted to delineate those as you read the report, because they are not one and the same. But the program is a more generic term. Before I get into the commendations, I just wanted to put in context the food service operation. We serve over 35,000 meals today, every day, over 28,000 lunches per day, and 739 employees comprise this department, and it's a $26 million a year operating budget. This is a large, major, and important program. We show early in the report that food is important for feeding the brains of our students before and during school, so that they work better and can learn more and achieve the results that were just described to you earlier. So nutrition services is a very important element of a school system's academic programs. There were several commendations we noted. This unit has made some improvements in recent years, and we wanted to acknowledge those. The human resource management and staffing efficiency at the school level has improved. Financial performance of the child nutrition department has improved. Communication, the formalizing of that communication has improved, and asset tracking and replacement planning has improved. So we wanted to note that these, notwithstanding our findings and recommendations to further improve, we did want to acknowledge the CND's improvement efforts thus far. There are some major findings I wanted to go through before we talk about the specific recommendations. One is the lack of key performance indicators, and this is a finding that we have found in other audits, and this was found also in this particular audit. And key performance indicators are measures of effectiveness, measures of efficiency, sometimes measures of compliance that help leadership hold that department accountable for results. So you just saw what that looks like in student achievement. Every department can have similar types of KPIs for their operation, and so we've recommended in the report KPIs that are very specific to the nutrition service operation. While the financial performance has improved in the school nutrition and the child nutrition department, we still have losses. We're not at a net loss. Our fund balances are positive. They're at reasonable levels. And so we are not in the hole in our nutrition services area at all. But our financial performance is such that we are not achieving our break even that we need to achieve. Some of this is due to staffing inefficiencies. While we've improved, there still is a ways to go. There are wide variations in staffing efficiency among schools. There are wide variations in meal participation rates across schools. Some of those can be explained. Some of those need to be addressed. We do not cost in detail our menu items, so it doesn't provide us the information that we need to do really robust financial analysis that can help us perhaps reduce those costs without sacrificing food quality. And we also noted there was a lack of school-level financial analysis. Every school should have a profit and loss statement for their food service operation. And if you do that, you're able to pinpoint which schools are contributing, which schools are not contributing. Again, the goal is to not make money. The goal is to break even, but you need to identify your schools which are bringing the average down. So those areas all contributed to financial performance that still needs to be improved. Another major finding in this audit was that the district, like many districts, it's not unique to Fort Bend ISD, is not participating in what's called the CEP, the Community Eligibility Provision. This is a program by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It's a relatively new program. You have 30 schools that are eligible to participate in this program, and it basically allows the entire school to be served free meals. And it does so without having individual families have to apply for eligibility. The school or the community is eligible if it meets certain criteria. So it's a really good program. The schools that have, school districts that have implemented that have seen the benefits of increased participation. And so we have a recommendation in this report for you to consider that. Another major finding is actually in process of being fixed as we speak. When we started the audit early in January, February, there was an information system that we found to be outdated, not integrated, not meeting your information needs, and requiring some excessive manual and spreadsheets and other processes which were not efficient. Before our audit was terminated or concluded, the district went out and purchased a new child nutrition information system. And we believe that that's going to address a lot of the inefficiencies and integration issues that we noted during the audit. Several compliance risks were noted in the report. While we noticed improved communications, there were some of the urgent communications about food safety recalls, program compliance. The way these get out to the schools is good. The way they get from the schools to the staff is not always clear, and it's not always consistent. And so we noted that during our site work, that when we were visiting the schools, that the same communication was really not the same. In many cases, it wasn't clear, and so we wanted to address that. We also noticed some cash controls. We don't handle a lot of cash these days at your schools in the nutrition service operation, but what little cash that we saw transacted, there were some control weaknesses that needed to be addressed. We also noted that the training records management, while you have training records, there was a lot of manual intervention and use of spreadsheets that increased the risk of a compliance issue with the TDA because the training requirements are very specific. The audit recommendations are start on page 20 of the report. I'm not going to go through each of them. Out of the 27 recommendations, 5 are considered high priority, 19 medium, 3 low. Those priority assignments were assigned by us based on our assessment of the priority and importance. The district responses to each recommendation are included in the report, and I believe the district largely agreed with virtually all of our recommendations. And there's only a couple of other recommendations that I really want to mention on subsequent pages before I finish. I mentioned the KPIs, which would also involve the conducting of annual surveys. So that performance information will help round out your key performance indicators for your nutrition service operation. Recommendation number 8 is to track and analyze financial information by school. We discussed the benefits of that. Recommendation 10 is to allocate general fund indirect costs to your nutrition services area. Right now, we are allocating some general fund costs that we incur on their behalf, like electricity, other utilities costs, some custodial costs. And so we are recommending that the district get reimbursed for all of those costs that they incur on the food service department's behalf. We've already talked about the CEP. We have some specific ideas to increase meal participation at some of your schools. Your range in participation in elementary schools goes from 30% to almost 80%. It's a very, very large participation rate. We have some suggestions for how you might be able to increase participation rates at some of those schools. I believe that's all the recommendations I really needed to discuss. I will be available for any questions at this time. And so that concludes my presentation of the Nutrition Services Audit Report.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Mrs. Haliger?
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. So I have 3 questions. So I don't think it's really towards the district. So what is the reasoning for us not having the 30 schools participate in the CEP?
Well, I'll just speak to that. Historically, it wasn't a priority by the prior administration. Matt got here, and I think he started in July, and he said we need to do this and we need to do it right now. But there are implications for accountability when you do it, because all the students in the school, sometimes they do not complete, there's a kind of a tension point where they all get to eat. But for accountability purposes, we still have to have a count of free and reduced lunch students, so we still need them to fill out the forms. So historically, throughout the state where this has occurred, there's been accountability problems, and schools go low performing because the parents think, well, we don't need to fill them out, the kids are already eating. So we asked to delay it for a period of time so we could get that strategy in place to be able to do that. But our plan is to get this going as soon as possible.
Okay.
Because we do agree it is in the best interest of the students.
Okay. And the second question is the variance. I saw something about variance of cost of, is it meals? What is that?
I'm sorry, your question?
You talked about there was different variance of costs for meals across in different schools.
Participation rates. So the meal participation rates, there's also, we have percentages of food costs that we compare to the peer districts. There are 11 peer districts that we compared to. Our food cost as a percentage of the total was actually in the lower end of the peer comparison. But the 2 major things we noticed wide variations were staff productivity and meal participation rates.
Okay. Maybe I understood it wrong. Okay, thank you for that clear up. And so then the last one is the participation. I know you talked about you have some ideas to get the participation rates up from 30 to 80%. Does that include asking the kids?
Yes, I believe
Okay.
the survey is, there's different types of surveys that you can do, and if it's done right, you obviously have to go by the rules if you're going to survey students. But you can ask students and inquire what's important to them in their meals. And so you can also analyze what they eat and be able to identify more popular foods that hopefully are also healthy foods. We also have a recommendation about filling a marketing position, actually marketing your programs. There was a position, but there was no individual in that position during our audit that was responsible for actually promoting the students eating meals at the school, and so are district-wide. So we think there's some basic marketing things that can be done, because what we observed at the schools was that the kitchens and the presentation of the food was great. It wasn't like there was a inclination of students not to eat because of what they saw. So every school that we saw to, the lines were inviting, the food was organized well. We ate the food. It was tasted good. And so some of the participation may be not that kids are not eating, they're bringing their own lunch, or they're going off campus later in the secondary school. In the high schools, they're leaving campus to go eat elsewhere.
Greg, let me interject, because one of the things that and Matt may want to speak to this too, one of the issues we really deal with is our diversity. Because with our significant Asian population, we have many vegetarians, and many students who need foods that are halal compliant, or even kosher in some cases, but especially halal in this community, and our kitchens have not provided those meals. So one of the tasks we've asked MAC to really get to is to understand what our diverse student body needs. And for us in a district this size, that means some of our schools, we're going to have differentiated menus. You can't have the same thing at every single school. And that's historically been all menus across all schools every day. But we've got to acknowledge that we have pockets of students who may eat at the school if they knew the school was prepared in a way compliant with their faith or their culture. So I think that alone is a big step forward if we get some gains there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Mrs. James?
Thank you, Dr. Dupree, for saying that, because that's been a longstanding need in the child nutrition department to have that addressed. And we have gluten-free students, we have vegetarians, we have all these things, and I appreciate you recognizing that. And I think that's a great step forward. I'd also like to pick up on another thing that Ms. Helliger just mentioned, and that is the community eligibility provision, because I've said for a long time we need to feed every child breakfast and lunch so we know they're getting 2 good meals, they're ready to learn in their school, and I really feel like this is and I'll just say one more bit of it is I think we need to look at summer feeding, because some of our kids need to eat meals and have their school be a center in their community that is safe, inviting, and is helping them to be better learners. So I've said that before, but it seemed like a good opportunity to reiterate that. I have one question additionally on slide 7, and that is the very first bullet there. You talked about a new system that we just purchased, and I'm trying to understand, is this going to address our information management issues or not address it?
Not independent. A system doesn't really solve your data problems, because your data is only as good as the data going into the system. It is going to make you more efficient, but there were 2 or 3 recommendations related to data validation that we noted in the report. That will need to be addressed through separate recommendations, and those are in the report.
Okay, so the new system is going to be functional, but it's the data going in and the way we're collecting that data that might create some inefficiencies or errors in.
I mean, some of the information we do not, because this was the new system was purchased after the field work, so we're not aware of all of the interfacing capabilities of the system. If it can reduce spreadsheets, the number of spreadsheets that we use to process information, then you reduce the risk of error. And so we're hopeful that there will be opportunities to interface, and there may be someone in the district more informed about this new system than I am that can maybe explain to you tonight or another night what type of integration can be achieved with this new information system. So the more integration you have, then you're not entering data into multiple systems, and that helps reduce the risk of data errors.
Okay, I see somebody who might be coming to the microphone who might be able to share a little more information.
Yeah, I can try to help answer that question. So we purchased Primero Edge software that was implemented right around July 1st. I've been using that software for 16 years now in previous districts. So a lot of the data that the audit recommends will be much more easily accessible. Meals per labor hour, daily activity reports, meals served per campus. So that data will be available district-wide and by campus. So then we will take that data and run reports along with salaries and pay per campus, so we can kind of find the problem areas. With 80 schools, we know there's going to be a few campuses where we're probably deficient in certain areas, and then there's others that are going to carry us with the sale of additional items or high participation, if you will. So we'll be able to drill down to individual campuses and find out where those problems are.
So just a follow-up question on that. So this software then is point of sale. It's tracking purchasing, food purchasing, reordering, things like all those types of things, right? So that's going to give you that data where it doesn't have to be entered individually. Okay.
Right.
Thank you very much.
And then in January, we'll start menu planning back of the house. So all the meal pricing, menu items will be in that system. Inventory will be done through this system, so we can keep track better of inventory in-house, what we're spending per campus, per meal. So all the data will be there for us.
Thank you, Mrs. James. Mr. Rice?
Well, I would just like to make a few concluding comments. And first of all, thank you to Matt Antignolo for coming in halfway through this audit and picking up the ball and helping us complete the audit in a timely fashion. And for those in the audience, you may have heard me say this before, but it does bear repeating. We've, in the last six years, completed approximately 18 audits of various departments. And when those audits are complete and the administration has had a chance to respond to all of the recommendations and the questions, then they're presented here at the board, as has been done this evening. Once it's been presented, Mr. Burdine will put it on the agenda to be accepted, and then it is published and becomes part of the public domain. But that's not the end of it. 9 months later, Mr. Gibson will come back and do a follow-up to see how well we are doing in achieving a lot of the recommendations that have been set forth. And that is how we conduct efficiency audits in Fort Bend ISD. And these audits are available to the public, and they show the things that we're doing well, the things we need to improve in, and everything else. And I challenge the county government, the city government, or any other school district in the state of Texas to meet the level of integrity and stick-to-itiveness that we have done over the last 6 years. We have Gibson Consulting who comes in and does this. We've outsourced that work because he is able to bring to bear specialists in the various fields. As he pointed out, the folks involved in child nutrition auditing up front with Rob Tennille Consulting. We can't employ all of these people in the school district, which is why we outsource this work. So I wanted to share that with everybody and make sure that members of the press write that down. We're sharing that with you, and so that's all I have to say. But again, Mr. Gibson, thank you for being here, and we'll look forward to the next audit presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. We will now convene in closed session under the Texas Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551, and those sections listed in the agenda, and for the purpose of private consultation with the board's attorney on any or all subject matters authorized by law. We are now convened in closed session.